ahead and take a look at their teams, because in this matchup it is going to be the teams that determine who will win. And looking at the Pokemon that Enrique has available to him, with that Celesteela in particular, it's going to be a very tough matchup for Renzo.
A double steel core on Enrique's end with both Celesteela and Ferrothorn there. Two Pokemon that would favor pretty well into Tapu Fini and some of the other options on Renzo's end of the field. We saw Renzo do so much in that last set, that best of three set that he had earlier on here today. So Enrique with those two steel types, you wonder if that is the best case, because Celesteela, although it is quite the beast of a Pokemon, it cannot deal that well with a Regieleki.
It can't, but there's plenty of Pokemon available to Enrique to help protect that Celesteela. So let's just jump straight into the action here as we figure out who will be moving on in the tournament in Players Cup 4. We're already seeing one of those Steel-type Pokemon on the field, Joe.
There it is, Enrique Grimaldo on the top of your screen with Ferrothorn, Tapu Fini, and Renzo Navarro on the bottom with Galarian, Moltres, and Incineroar. Galarian Moltres did not make an appearance in that previous set, so this is new for us, as Incineroar will fake out the Tapu Fini, Nasty Plot from Moltres, increasing its special attack, or boosting its special attack by 2 stages. Tapu Fini flinches, and Ferrothorn saying his best Registeel impression, as he also got access to Iron Defense this generation, gonna boost its defense by 2 stages.
Unfortunately for that Ferrothorn, though, the Incineroar is that much scarier to it, thanks to the fact that it is 4 times weak to those fire attacks. This Moltres getting a little greedy in front of the Tapu Fini, going for a second Nasty Plot. Tapu Fini is going to be able to deal a ton of damage to that Moltres with Moonblast. The big question is, who did Enrique target this turn?
There was a Protect on that turn, and then a second Nasty Plot from Renzo. That's now a super strong Galarian Moltres. Enrique opting for Calm Mind this turn, so no attacks coming out from his end of the field, boosting its special attack and special defense by 1 stage, and that's going to go back right down to neutral because of Incineroar's parting shot. That will bring its special attack back down to even. Still has a special defense boost, which will help a little bit against Moltres, although I don't know how well that helps against a +4 potential max airstream coming out.
You have to go for the Dynamax at this point on that Galarian Moltres. I think if you were to attempt to go for another Nasty Plot, even though you probably could find it between the help of the Regieleki and the fact that the Moltres will be faster than that Ferrothorn, at +4 special attack, knowing that you will also have the Berserk ability on your side and possibly even a weakness policy as well, you might as well start getting that damage down on the board. And if Enrique gives you the opportunity to get to +6, you take it. But for all of effects and purposes, I think +4 special attack is all this Moltres needs to get the ball going in Renzo's favor.
Oh, definitely. It'd be a little greedy to go for 3 Nasty Plots. That would be pretty fun to see, though. Enrique is switching the Tapu Fini out, so going to get rid of that special defense boost that it set up the prior turn into Garchomp. Garchomp, a Pokemon that is also a very strong Dynamax attacker, just like Galarian Moltres is, and Renzo deciding now is the time to set up my Dynamax on Moltres. This is going to give Renzo 3 very strong attacks potentially, and you'd start right off the bat with a max airstream, but Volt Switch from Regieleki goes into the ground type, so it is not able to switch out. And this max airstream, that's a neutral attack, by the way, because Grass and Steel make flying neutral. There is enough for a clean 1-hit KO, and Enrique is down a Pokemon right away here on this first turn of Dynamax from Renzo. And it looks like with all these speed boosts, there's not much that's going to be able to stop it, and I don't know if Incineroar is able to do it.
Incineroar could help out if that Moltres hadn't gone for the Dynamax and was vulnerable to a flinch from a fake out, but a very strong start from Renzo. Seeing the Ferrothorn and the Tapu Fini lead, from Enrique gave him the opportunity to start off slow, to go for those 2 nasty plots, because there wasn't much that Enrique could have done to punish that play. Ferrothorn is known to be a very slow Pokemon, but it's better to end games. It's not necessarily the best Pokemon to start games with.
Yeah, and that Iron Defense not mattering at all, obviously, because it took the Airstream. So even its first turn ended up not being eventful for Enrique. Now, Garchomp is using its Dynamax. It's going to have 3 turns of very strong attacks. Garchomp often has access to Max Rockfall, which would be a super effective attack into Galarian Moltres, but instead is just going to Max Guard this turn. Volt Switch from Regieleki connecting on to Incineroar lets it switch out, and we can see those last Pokemon that Renzo has on his end is a Landorus Therian, so this is a great Intimidate, which is going to hurt Garchomp a lot, as well as being both of these Pokemon immune to Max Quake, which would be the strongest attack you would think, since the same type attack bonus onto Garchomp. Not going to be able to do that onto either of Renzo's Pokemon, and the Max Darkness went into Garchomp's Max Guard that turn. So you did have a Snarl helping out just a smidge, lowering Moltres' special attack by 1 stage, but not too much.
Not too much, and Renzo in a very, very smart position to go for Earthquake plus an attack to try and knock out that Garchomp. It's not going to be able to Max Guard a second time, so it's going to be taking damage.
Max Airstream at +3, Garchomp is able to take that pretty well considering the situation. It's only taken half of its HP. Landorus Therian with an Earthquake will be super effective into Incineroar, knocking it out, bringing Garchomp down very, very low as well. So Garchomp is very threatened at this point of being potentially knocked out by any attack. And Max Rockfall for Enrique will be super effective onto the Moltres, but no, actually targeting down the Landorus position instead of the Moltres, maybe expecting a potential Max Guard on this last turn. Just wanted to get some nice chip damage into that Landorus position.
Unfortunately, though, that chip damage is not going to help the fact that both the Moltres and the Landorus Therian are faster than Garchomp and Tapu Fini and are going to be able to do significant damage to both these Pokemon. Even if Renzo decides to go for Fiery Wrath over a flying type attack from that Moltres, in this case the Hurricane, that's going to do enough damage to knock out the Garchomp from this range, and that allows Landorus to focus in on the Tapu Fini, possibly even use Fly to ensure it won't take any damage this turn.
Max Guard from Enrique on its 3rd and final turn of Dynamax. So 2 Max Guards out of the 3. Garchomp really not getting too much of an effective use of Dynamax here in game 1. Fiery Wrath does connect onto Tapu Fini, obviously. It will have the chance to flinch as well, but this Earthquake from Landorus should do some solid damage, bringing Fini down to under half of its HP thanks to the Life Orb boost. And insult to injury, Landorus is on the field, and that's not the Pokemon that flinched you. It was actually Moltres that got the flinch onto Tapu Fini.
But that flinch was huge because that meant Tapu Fini was not able to target that Moltres with Moonblast to threaten a knockout there. Now Moltres, all he has to do on Renzo's side of the field is Earthquake Fiery Wrath once again, knock out Tapu Fini and Garchomp, and bring us into game 2 of this set. A very decisive win for Renzo, just using that first 2 turns, nasty plot, and Enrique just couldn't recover.
No, definitely not. It looked like Enrique was maybe potentially expecting a different lead option out on the other end there to have a more slow-paced game with the Ferrothorn on the field, being able to set up Iron Defense turn 1, but he was not provided that chance, as the 2 nasty plots from Galarian Moltres were a problem right away. So adjusting here in game 2, you would say most definitely the adjustment for Enrique is you need a stronger answer to Galarian Moltres right away.
You do, and I think you can find that on your team, not by the Ferrothorn, but with the Celesteela, who is a more offensive variant. So jumping into game 2, I really hope we see Enrique bring Celesteela instead, leave Ferrothorn behind, and just try and get more offense going immediately off the bat.
Yep, I definitely agree that would be a nice adjustment to see. So let's see what happens here in game 2 in this matchup, because here we are in losers quarters, right? This is the last stand for one of these trainers, and of course the one winner will still have that chance of becoming Players Cup 4 champion. Garchomp Incineroar is Enrique's lead this time around, so not switching in the Garchomp on a potential Volt Switch, saying right away, I want to be here against Regieleki, and then Renzo having Regieleki Incineroar as their option.
This Garchomp also has Sword Stance, which means these Intimidates aren't going to be as big of a deal as they would be otherwise, especially if Enrique is able to find an opportunity to go for it.
Renzo with a fake out from his Incineroar into Enrique, so that will stop any attacks it wants this turn, and Volt Switch from Regieleki being super threatened by the Garchomp in this position is going to switch out into Landorus Therian, providing a second Intimidate, putting Garchomp at -2, effectively forcing Enrique to take a turn to Sword Stance if he ever wants to have any strong damage come out of his Garchomp. And that turn is now, as he decides on Garchomp right away, I'm going to Sword Stance and negate those 2 Intimidates, bringing myself back up to a neutral attack stat on the Garchomp. So in this point, you know you can't be intimidated again for the moment, because Incineroar or Landorus has to switch out. Do you Sword Stance or do you Dynamax?
I think you have to go for the Sword Stance, and you have to be greedy, because seeing how Renzo played that game 1, you know that he's looking for the opportunity to build up momentum once again. And the nice thing about having the Incineroar and the Landorus on the field next to each other is that both of these Pokemon are not going to be able to knock out Garchomp this turn. It's possible that Landorus might decide to go for a Dynamax, maybe to start getting Airstream going, but now especially that you know your opponent's brought Moltres, Sword Stance is the answer.
Then there is the Sword Stance yet again out of Enrique, getting another boost to its attack, making it +2 in this position. Earthquake from Landorus is going to be able to take down Incineroar. That's 2 games in a row we've seen Incineroar get knocked out to Landorus's Earthquake. Life Orb is actually, very helpful in this position. In previous kind of formats or VGC tournaments, you'd have maybe a Yachi Berry or Salt Vest or Choice Scarf. It seems like here in Players Cup 4, the item of choice is Life Orb on Landorus.
And another adjustment from Enrique, bringing Grimmsnarl this time around, which you would normally assume that a Grimmsnarl would be a Pokemon that you lead, that you set a screen or 2 up in the process, maybe then switch it out and have it come back. But I think knowing that Enrique has brought it in the later part of this game gives him the opportunity to adjust better to Renzo's strategy, which is looking like it's going to be to continue cycling those Intimidates in and out and maybe rely more on physical attackers rather than the Moltres like we saw in that game 1.
Garchomp, after 2 turns of dancing it up on the battlefield with the Sword Stance, decides now it's time at half of its HP, also to note, so doesn't have as much wiggle room around this time since it's already half HP. Will Dynamax, and Renzo will respond in kind with a Dynamax of his own, being the Landorus this time around. So since Galarian Moltres switched out that turn, that was kind of a strong indication that Moltres is not the Dynamax attacker for Renzo in game 2 here. Instead, it's Landorus, which is still a very effective Pokemon to use that can put out a lot of offensive pressure. Light Screen from Grimmsnarl. Light Screen coming out because he thought Moltres would be the Dynamax attacker. Instead, it switched out, so that's not going to help that much this turn. And Max Rockfall from the Garchomp doesn't even do half to Landorus here. So now you're in a difficult spot for Enrique, because since you Dynamax, you can't get those Sword Stances to keep negating the Intimidates that will come out. And Max Airstream from Landorus into Garchomp is going to give a speed boost to itself and its partner there in the Incineroar, which is obviously going to be helpful. Garchomp just barely hanging on for one more turn, but at this point it's going to be slower than Landorus anyway.
It is, and that's really unfortunate for Enrique. Had he gone for Reflect instead of Light Screen there, the Garchomp most likely would have been able to take that Max Airstream, possibly even one more, and given him the freedom to utilize all the turns of the Dynamax. But just Renzo making that perfect prediction, adjusting from Moltres to Landorus, and it's already paying off.
Reflect this turn from Grimmsnarl. Did not go for it last turn and actually was a big deal. This time around, it will negate the physical damage being shown off from Landorus, but that still is a very strong attack thanks to its Life Orb and the same type attack bonus that Landorus gets from being a flying type. Flare Blitz from Incineroar is not able to knock out Garchomp because of max guard on this last turn of Dynamax. So Enrique still has the Garchomp out here. A Grimmsnarl is very, very low, as well as Garchomp. It's still a difficult spot.
It's still a difficult spot, and that Landorus is still going to be faster than Garchomp this turn. So I think Enrique, if you want to try and do something, maybe you try and get a second max guard, and maybe you get it sometime.
And 30% of the time, you will get a max guard as you are able to protect yourself and stick around. But the Landorus was taunted as well, meaning for the future turns, it's not going to be able to protect. And Flare Blitz from Incineroar gets Grimmsnarl to go down in this spot. Incineroar still really healthy after that turn. So now that Dynamax is gone in this matchup, the Tapu Fini will switch onto the field, and maybe that's what the taunt was setting up at that point, because now you can't protect. You're going to have to switch out the Landers if you don't want to potentially eat a Muddy Water.
Yeah, you can't protect, but I think also something to keep an eye on here is you can't go for a Swords Dance as well. Garchomp is not the only Swords Dance user on the field. The Landorus does have access to it, and now that its Dynamax is over, if it wanted to try and, take a turn, get that Swords Dance in to threaten the Tapu Fini, it could have gone for it, but oh my goodness.
This is the most passive Garchomp I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Is that is 2 max guards and a protect the last 3 turns. Rock Slide into Tapu Fini, not doing too much damage. And this Garchomp is trying its best to stick around for Enrique. Taunt from Incineroar is going to stop any Calm Mind boost that Enrique would go for, but no, Enrique doesn't fall for it. Instead, just the super effective Muddy Water into Landorus, knocking it out and bringing Incineroar down to around 60% of its HP. So a nice turn out of Enrique because he didn't care about the taunt, because you had Muddy Water, which was super effective onto both targets on the field.
And now that Landorus is gone, this Garchomp is effectively the fastest thing on the field. Yes, Regieleki has a higher speed stat, but like many Regieleki in this tournament, it only knows electric type attacks, which will not be able to connect with the ground type Pokemon Garchomp. Enrique's, thanks to that triple protect, has found himself an out here. The big question is, will Garchomp be able to knock out both the Incineroar and the Regieleki with an Earthquake this turn? If it's able to do that, Enrique will still be in this tournament, but it's a tough call.
Regieleki Volt switching into Tapu Fini. So now Garchomp's not even going to get the chance to Earthquake it, as we know Galarian Moltres is Renzo's 4th and final Pokemon in this matchup. So being a flying type, it's going to be immune to that Earthquake that is potentially coming this turn. Flare Blitz from Incineroar, the speed boost that actually got before, makes it faster than Garchomp. So take a little rough skin, but absolutely you will take that trade to get rid of Garchomp. And through all of Enrique's efforts for getting 3 protects in a row to keep Garchomp in this position, it will not be enough. And now the Muddy Water actually dodging on Moltres' end and not even knocking out Incineroar as the Sandstorm subsides. That won't even get the KO either.
No, what a fantastic run for this Garchomp. I really want to know how Enrique trained this Garchomp. I want to know what kind of curry he prepared for this Garchomp, because that Garchomp was doing everything to keep Enrique's tournament life alive. Unfortunately, though, those 2 speed boosts from that Landorus were just key, allowing Incineroar to outspeed. Incineroar also getting that taunt in on the Tapu Fini, so it couldn't have protected that turn. Now this Moltres has all the time in the world to nasty plot and set up that win condition for Renzo.
Flare Blitz from Incineroar doesn't even knock itself out from the recoil, so that's going to force the Tapu Fini to go for an attack if it wants to KO at this turn. Moltres with the nasty plot will give it a +2 special attack boost. Muddy Water connecting onto both targets, which is helpful for Enrique because that gets rid of Incineroar. But if it can get an accuracy drop, that might help. But you do have to remember, Gabby, looming in the back is the Regieleki, which is very happy to face off against the Tapu Fini.
Exactly, and that's why Moltres was free to go for that nasty plot in the previous turn. Otherwise, Moltres probably would have had to use Fiery Wrath and hoped for a flinch or two, but Regieleki, we've already seen how much damage it can do to the Tapu Fini with Volt Switch. It's only going to take a hit or two for it to knock out from here, and any time that Enrique tries to stall from here on out also means that the light screen that's active on his side of the field may fall soon. So very well played from both these trainers. Enrique just trying to hold on by any means necessary. Unfortunately, though, Renzo was able to keep the Regieleki safe, get the Moltres that special attack boost he needs, and keep moving through the tournament.
Yep, congratulations to Renzo. An impressive performance, not only in their match earlier
It's not
today,
over yet.
which was a lot longer than this has been right now. Thunderbolt from Regieleki will target down the Tapu Fini's Protect, and there's the second nasty plot. That's the position that Enrique's found himself in, is if you want to protect to get leftovers recovery, you're essentially just giving Renzo another additional nasty plot boost. Now you're +4 in this position. I don't even know if you click Hurricane, you don't want to miss, you just click Fiery Wrath at +4, even though it's resisted, because it's going to be very strong, and you have the chance at getting a flinch as well. So this is a really, really good position for Renzo.
Yeah, and again, this Moltres is not in a position, thanks to the Regieleki, where it has to do damage. The nasty plots are certainly nice, but because Regieleki is standing next to it and Regieleki has access to those electric type attacks, really the best Moltres can do is play support, fish for flinches,